Yuki's going to be world champion in 2025. Spanner's here, and we are responding to the somewhat confirmed news that Yuki Tsunoda is going to fill in for Liam Lawson for the rest of the season, starting from the Japanese Grand Prix. Liam Lawson has only been given 2 races, apparently, in which to prove himself, and he hasn't been able to do that. So here to complain with me is Alex Vangeen. Hello, Alex.
Hello, we like complaining.
Yeah, and
it's like a whole separate part of the show, me and you complaining about stuff.
But we're complaining in different ways, because I'm mad at you and Brad. Whenever we talk about the Red Bull drivers, we have completely opposing views on them. And so I was like, right, I need to get at least you or Brad on the show today to talk about this, because I just want to see if there's any common ground. First thing, you know the first thing I'm going to say, don't you?
You're looking for vindication for Perez?
Vindication!
Absolutely not. It's entirely different. You can't compare. You can't even compare. Even if Yuki fails, it's not a vindication for Perez. Perez has decades of experience, and how long was he in F1 for? 12, 13 years?
I think it was his 3rd or 4th year in F1, yeah.
He also won nothing on the way up to Formula One, and then did fine in fine machinery, and then when he finally got his chance at the big show, he flopped. You can't compare that to a guy in his 12th and 13th Grand Prix, and even Yuki Tsunoda, who's in his, 3rd or 4th season? 5th season?
So that does highlight a couple of things there. Firstly, okay, you don't promote someone after 12 races, split over 2 seasons, and expect a miracle, because they must have been expecting a miracle. I'm going to argue the Perez thing, though. He didn't just do fine. You and Brad are terrible for downplaying Perez's achievements in the midfield. He's good enough to put in those performances to win the odd race, to get 9 podiums from the midfield. When Stroll does the same thing, he'll get like a P7 because it's raining and most of the field, and everyone still claps. But so Perez gets.
I have to stop you on the wins the odd race. He fluked 1 win at the end of the season when no one finished. It was almost as bad as the Panis win in Monaco all those years ago. He did great. The safety car saved him because he came from the back of the grid.
Came from the back of the grid is all I'm hearing out that.
But wasn't Lewis out? Max wasn't in contention, so it was almost like it was a gimme and a roll of the dice. Whoever was going to win that race
from the back of the grid in a Force India is a gimme. It's unbelievable. The way you guys think about
was it a Force India though?
Racing Point.
Or was it a Mercedes?
Oh, was that the copied Mercedes?
It was the Racing Point Mercedes.
All right. I'm going to ask one concession before we talk about Lawson and Tsunoda. Will we at least admit that Lawson has highlighted the challenge better than any of the other 3 drivers that have come before him of exactly how hard that car is? Because you said he was the greatest ever generational talent to ever grace Formula One. I think that's what you said. Pretty sure that's what you said.
No, not at all. I was nicer about Behrman than I was about Lawson. I've actually said I don't really like Lawson. I think he comes across as a bit of a bully and the kind of guy that was probably the jock at school.
He's made some awful comments. We were talking in the last show about how he'd handled himself with a bit of dignity, and saying it was and then I read like stuff that he said his favourite race was Abu Dhabi 2021. Boo, That's obviously tribal. But then the way he was just absolutely, dismissing Tsunoda and saying, no, he's had his time, and I beat him in Formula 3, which I don't think is true, and I beat him in F1. He must be saying, like, I've beaten him in the odd race. That must be what he's talking about. But it's like, it was unnecessary. Is there some beef between Lawson and Tsunoda that we didn't pick up on?
No, because apparently Yuki and Lawson have been friends for years. I do think there's a thing where people kind of pick on Yuki. I think he's like the easy meat in the paddock, where it's kind of easy to take the mick out of him because he's the smaller guy. He doesn't speak very good English, and his banter's probably not very great. So he's the easy one to kind of go for. And Lawson comes across as the guy that picks on people like that. I wouldn't out and out call him a bully, but he's got that kind of demeanor about him.
Oh, okay. Well, we're kicking him when he's down, clearly. But I will say that he definitely seems like the sort of bloke who would pull out a guitar on the beach when everyone's just trying to chill. And he's like, no, now hear my cover of whatever it is I've just been practicing. No, hang on. I'll get it. It can't become just a character assassination. You've got to look at the performance. And your 2 races is way too little to tell. Like, it definitely is.
I think this whole situation is epically unfair. Epically unfair. The guy's done 11 races in F1, and bearing in mind there was the whole argument of is he or isn't he a rookie? And the thing was it was never his car, it was never his team, it was never his drive. He was airdropped in, and then you give him his drive and you put him in the Red Bull. Which if it was Yuki or Lawson, I wouldn't have been mad because you've got to give somebody a go, but to then put him down after 2 races, that's killing his entire career. That's not giving him, a bit of a kick up the backside to say, come on, you can do better.
That's gone.
That's shit done.
Yeah. That's going to be a very, very hard one to come back from. I would say from a Red Bull, from a company point of view, they won't really care about that. And you're right, it is unfair, but they've got to make the correct decision for them. So what it seems like is they've basically got a better offer from Honda, or they've gone back to Honda and said, okay, it clearly isn't going well, so now we're listening. So what I heard from, who's the guy? Kim Iliam? I've said the name wrong. But
that's who we were told in our WhatsApp.
Right. Did a video. I saw a video that he did saying that initially Honda were willing to pay 10 million more than the 10 million he already pays Tsunoda for the Visa Cash App seat. And so that was refused by Red Bull, and they decided to go with Lawson. So I think Lawson must have come with some money as well, but they've made the choice that Lawson plus money was better than Tsunoda plus money. They have had a good look at Lawson. I know it's only 2 races, but they would have seen it in testing as well. And testing, he didn't look like he had control of that car really at any point. Then you come to the Grand Prix, and there are other teammates who've gone to completely new teams with different engines who are close to their teammates. So we'll talk about the drivability of the car, but this is objectively an alarming gap in performance to your teammate. Now, we're talking about a car that lots of people have said is hard to drive, and we're talking about Max Verstappen, who is quite possibly on his way to the very, very top of F1 history. So it's a very, very hard challenge, but those were alarmingly bad results. I think he could have qualified. He could have had Q2 knockouts, and people wouldn't be too worried. He could have been P10. He could have nicked a point or been just outside the points, and people wouldn't be as worried. But when he's rolling around right at the back, when he's qualifying dead last, you go, there is something. He cannot operate. He literally can't operate the car. Then they go to Honda, and Honda apparently it's an extra 10 million on top of what we've said before. As long as they do it by Japan, then that just makes sense. That just becomes a decision, and it's unfair on Lawson. He could have got more opportunity, but you can see from a business point of view, they just went, right, that's the decision then. That's the deal. We're willing to stump up more money, and we're willing, and then Red Bull are willing to accelerate it, because it's an insane acceleration in this decision to Japan. Now everyone's happy. Red Bull have got their 10 million extra. That's pretty cool. They probably can see the writing on the wall. They were going to have to make this decision anyway. And Honda are getting Japanese driver, Japanese Grand Prix. Absolutely brutal and savage.
The problem is this has the potential to kill Yuki Tsunoda as well. Because, I'm assuming everybody has heard the Alex Albon interview by now.
Yeah.
The understanding of how that Red Bull works. For those that haven't, he talks about the car being super sensitive on the front end. Max just wants more and more and more and more and more front end, because that is actually the ideal way to drive a Formula One car, to dominate it all with the front end and then deal with whatever the rear throws at you. If you look at any of the best F1 drivers in history, they can all deal with a car that has an oversteery rear end. Lewis, Max, Schumacher, Senna, all those guys who are the fast, aggressive drivers, they all dealt with a car that can just dance around the corners. And if you can't do that, you have no confidence in the car. If you have no confidence in the car, you can't drive it quickly. If you try to live with it, you crash. And Lawson's had a street track, which then rained to deal with.
Yeah.
And then a brand new track surface at China, where it was a horrible place to drive anyway. And in a car that Max is also struggling with. Max is doing a great job because, however much I hate to come on here and compliment Max Verstappen, he is one of the greatest drivers we've ever seen. He is a phenomenal talent, and he seems to be able to get a result out of any car.
Steve, can we edit that out in post? Cheers.
He seems to be able to get a result out of anything, and even he's struggling with it. He is constantly moaning about the car not driving the way that he wants it to, and that says a lot about it. Can it be? Maybe I was wrong about all the things I've said about Adrian Newey, and maybe he is the silver bullet that is the key to that car. He's disappeared along with a whole bunch of the other decent aero stuff, and that car now doesn't work properly. And then they've put it in the hands of a kid who's just started in Formula One, and he's really struggling with it.
Okay.
I think the best thing for them to do is stick Max in the RB.
I don't like this theory. You said this in our group chat. That's the dumbest idea. That's dumber than rats.
What was it? Hajar was 0.4 of a second off of pole in China.
Yeah, but okay, Verstappen on
is Max 0.4 of a second quicker than Hajar.
The gap in ultimate pace in a normal car isn't going to be that. He's probably not 0.4 seconds over race pace. I'll buy that. But if you're saying that,
it's an interesting experiment though.
Yeah, and they look. Red Bull are experimenting because they've got this unprecedented power to just swap drivers at will. So we are going to see this experiment. If there wasn't Suzuka coming up now, if Suzuka was round 6, it might have been different. And they said, okay, well, we'll do it round 6.
Or after the summer break.
Yeah, or after the summer break or something like that. But if they're going to do it, you may as well put him in there for the Japanese Grand Prix. But, why not if there's $30 million to be had? But, yeah, you're right. This has the potential to kill Tsunoda. And I'm worried. I'm a Tsunoda fan. And you've got to think that the most likely thing is there's going to be pretty close to what's happened to Lawson.
Here's a question. Do you think Yuki has a choice?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, the management can say, his management could say no. He's not managed by Honda. Honda are just financial backers. However, he has a choice, but morally, if you back yourself as a racing driver at the very top level and you duck this challenge, you're going to go down forever. It's the same thing with Ricciardo going to Renault. Everyone always talks about that as running away from Max. No one talked about it as, this taking a great opportunity and really believing in the Renault project. Everyone had the feeling that, no, you ducked Max Verstappen. And look, if there's a big heavyweight boxer who's just dominating the era and you get a challenge title fight and you duck it, everyone sees that. They see that you're not taking it on.
That's not quite what it was, though. I know what it's seen as, but what it was he saw the writing on the wall with the team going towards Max Verstappen, and he didn't want to be in that thing where the team
Yuki,
was his.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, yes. And yeah, he can't, in his mind, in private, he's like, oh God, I've got to make this work. I've got to make this work.
Sure.
So there is going to be so much pressure on him next weekend, and I really hope he doesn't fail. I really hope he gets himself at least into Q2 and scrapes a point like you said Lawson should have done. If he does, then that's a success.
Oh, we'll talk about what's a win for Tsunoda. No, with Ricciardo, it's more like he'd had the battle with the up-and-coming person who was going to dominate the heavyweight category, had a few bloody noses, had a good few exchanges and went, actually, I don't need another rematch. So that's slightly different. But if you're a Red Bull Junior, you cannot duck the challenge of going up against Tsunoda, going up against Verstappen. I said what I was thinking in my heart then. You can't duck. Did you see the thing where Verstappen was saying, oh, Yuki shouldn't do it because he'll be better off in the Visa Cash App?
No, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, apparently. And so people were misinterpreting that as maybe Verstappen's scared to take on Yuki the GOAT.
I don't think Verstappen is scared of anyone or anything. Again, I don't particularly like to comment and praise Max, but you can't, the guy is floating on the absolute upper echelon of complete and utter confidence.
Yeah, so Tsunoda has no real choice from a career point of view, because who really would like the guy who said no to the opportunity to go to one of the top teams against the world champion and prove yourself there? Now, whether or not he can do it is really down to those, the driving styles. That's probably the big question. So I think in his mind, he will go there 100% going, yeah, I've been good everywhere. I was learning against Gasly. Then I saw off De Vries. I saw off Ricciardo. I was better than Lawson. I've been ignored. And now's my time to show it. So I think he's going to go. I think Lawson went there with that same feeling as well. But it's this thing of the car and whether it can suit your driving style. Did we know that Lawson was going to struggle with a rear happy car? Did anyone predict that from his driving style? Do we think that about Tsunoda? Does Tsunoda prefer a pointy front end?
We don't know that, but you can tell that a lot of the look on Lawson's face in the interviews is confusion.
Yeah.
He doesn't understand why he can't drive this car, because he's actually been quite good through his junior career. I think he's a lifer Red Bull driver. So they've obviously nurtured him in a particular way. And then he's like scratching his head as to why this doesn't work. But it's like, we thought it was harsh on Jean-Eric Verne, and we thought it was harsh on who's the other one?
Buemi, Kvyat.
But we thought it was not so much Kvyat, but we thought it was for the first two. It was on the first two, on Buemi and Jean-Eric Verne. We thought it was harsh on them because those two were doing well. They weren't doing bad performances, and they just got dropped like yesterday's garbage. And Lawson hasn't even had a chance to just kind of find his feet yet in this brand new car that's not driving very well. If it was the world beater that the 22 and the 23 cars were, slightly different scenario. But it's not. It's a car that is struggling and in the decline of this regulation set.
Okay, so you could paint this story of Lawson put in there, way too inexperienced, shouldn't have done it, promoted too early, didn't stand a chance. And so from that point of view, he's facing a challenge of a completely different car to drive. If he had been in for 5 or 6 seasons, say, before that chance came along, he would have had different regulation sets, and he would have had a car that was different from one season to the other and adapted to learning about that. When you've had 12 races over 2 seasons, and then you get this massive challenge of the undrivable car, he was the most exposed to it. Even, I don't know, Albon was exposed as well, I suppose. Did he have 6 months at Toro Rosso? Yeah, and then...
Yeah, Gasly was in there. Gasly wasn't performing. They dropped Gasly, stuck Albon in for the final end of the season. He didn't actually do that bad a job.
No.
He had a couple of crashes, but he didn't do that bad a job. And then they just dropped him. Who did they drop him for? Did they drop him for Perez?
Yeah, I think after he wiped out Hamilton in Brazil, the writing was on the wall after that.
Yeah.
Which side are you on? That?
Oh, what side am I on? That'd be ridiculous. But yeah, no. But I still don't think that was. I think that's a move that's going to happen, and it's one of those things that sometimes you come off on, and it was his fault, but it's still a racing incident. It's not a massive like, oh my god, that's horrific kind of thing. No. Certainly, on the back of that, didn't deserve to lose his drive.
No. So yeah. So he was equally sort of exposed as well, but I think Lawson in particular, with no preseason testing and just airdropped, as you said, not his car, not his drive really. Did he have 6 races in 23 and 6 races in 24? And in that time, he's obviously had the odd good race, and I think he scored 4 points in that second. He
did well in his first season.
Yeah, he seemed to
He
do
didn't
better.
do as well last season, but I think that Red Bull, the RB Visa Cash App, whatever the bloody called these days, that car wasn't a good car last year.
Yeah, but also Tsunoda's getting better. Tsunoda's developing. Helmut Marko says he's driving out of his skin right now because that suits the narrative of the Honda deal that they knew was going to happen behind closed doors. What a coincidence, eh? That Horner and Helmut Marko a few days ago were going on about how tremendously Tsunoda's doing suddenly.
Helmut's an awful man. Honestly, I
don't know him.
I don't have a good word to say about that man. He's been in the sport for as long as he's been in the sport, and I don't think he's particularly treated anyone well other than Max and Seb. They're the only 2 drivers that he's actually treated well because they were his boys, and that was kind of it. But I'm no big Yuki fan. I'm certainly not a Yuki hater. I have nothing against Yuki. I think he's a fine driver. Is he going to be a world beater and a guy who's going to trouble? If he does manage to make that Red Bull work, he'll be the 8th driver out of that top 4, out of those top 4 teams, and I include Kimi Antonelli in that as well.
Yeah, I think so. Why not?
But I just think this has an absolute opportunity to kill his career. I hope it doesn't. I really, really hope he turns up at Suzuka and does a phenomenal job, and we're all singing the praises of them switching Lawson over. The realist in me isn't so sure.
Okay. I've got one more point on Lawson, though, before I want to fully focus on my fear as a Tsunoda fan. So with Lawson, Okay, so it's not a pure case of we're getting rid of Perez. Now we're seeing which one of these two drivers is more talented. There's money involved. So Lawson had backing, and from what I was told before they replaced Perez, both Tsunoda and Lawson would have been expected to bring money. So it would have been a combination of who can bring us some results, who brings in some money. So that means Lawson's team and Lawson's management were pushing to get that Red Bull seat after 12 races in over 2 seasons where he'd never had preseason testing. He'd not fully bedded in. They chose to expose him to that situation. They chose to expose him to that scenario as quickly as they possibly could. Why not let Tsunoda go there and fail? Why not let Tsunoda be the one who is struggling with this car? If you're Lawson's management, did you really believe that Perez was that bad? You might agree with Alex and say that, oh yeah, he was a bit of a journeyman midfielder capable of the odd fluky. He's calling Istanbul fluky from the back of the grid. You might agree with Alex, but he obviously wasn't as bad as he looked in 2024. Like nearly no one is. Lawson's not as bad as he's looked at the beginning of this season. So you should have looked at Perez and gone, he is being made to look like an absolute fool. A driver that we know, we've seen for over a decade, could at least drive a Formula One car, and he cannot operate that Red Bull machinery. You'd have looked at that and said, send Tsunoda in. We'll have another 2 years bedding in at Visa Cash App, bossing Visa Cash App. We'll get rid of Hajar. We'll put him to the sword. And then we'll go there when Verstappen's fed up and he's off to Aston Martin or whatever. I think this was greed, not money-wise, but greed in opportunity-wise from the Lawson team to push for that. It was the wrong thing to do. They've ruined his career pushing for that Red Bull drive.
See, I think a lot of this has to do with, this is what I was saying before everything happened, which was I never thought Yuki was going to get the Red Bull drive because he's a Honda driver, and obviously Red Bull are eventually.
Well, you were wrong about that, weren't you?
Are eventually part. Well, it wasn't the fact that Lawson got the drive. Was that they were parting?
Hang on, no, but if you say never, if you say he's never going to get the Red Bull drive because he's a Honda driver,
as in, was he going to be announced?
No, never. That doesn't expire. You're definitely wrong about that one.
Right,
Come on.
All right, Spanners. It was that case of Lawson is a Red Bull driver. So if Lawson had the money, they're going to put a Red Bull driver in over the Honda driver. Now they've seen an opportunity to take 10 million quid more from Honda and gone, all right, we'll stick the kid in and see what he can do. But this isn't just throwing him in the deep end. This is throwing him in the deep end with no armbands, in boiling hot water, and with no life raft and no safety net.
He's got more experience than Lawson. He's experienced different teammates. So he's not as exposed and not as vulnerable. And so you and Brad were going, well, Perez has got no excuse because he had all these seasons. Yuki's probably got less excuse because he's had several seasons in Formula One, several teammates, a couple of different regulation sets. It's still looking dodgy though. Okay.
It all depends on what Yuki's preferred driving style is. If what Albon has told us is true, and to be fair, Alex. I think what Horner said.
Yeah, he confirmed it.
Horner confirmed it, which is he wants more and more and more and more front end. If that's true, and if that's the kind of style that Yuki likes, he could flourish. But if it's not,
we have to plug that podcast now because you've mentioned it twice. That interview was on the High Performance podcast. Thanks a lot, Alex.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know which one it was on.
Ethically, I couldn't let another mention pass without saying that it was the High Performance podcast. And so now everyone's going to tune into that and realise that they've just been doing it wrong this whole time. They just
if they haven't seen that at least that clip of that interview, they're on no social media at all, and they're probably not watching this podcast.
I watch that because it makes me realise that I just have to work hard and leverage the privilege that I was graced with as a child.
Oh, he was nice to us at that karting event we did. Oh, hang on. Do I get these two confused?
Oh, God.
I get Greg and who's the other guy?
Jake Humphries.
I get Greg and Jake Humphries confused.
So, Jake,
because they're both massive,
very successful broadcaster. He just irks me with this one thing where he basically described the old boy network and privilege and dressed that up as working hard. But all the things he said was like, just leverage your successful friends and help each other. Greg James has now, being at that karting event that I organised, And then he accused us of cheating. He accused me of bringing in ringers, and he slated us on his podcast for taking it too seriously because we had our own race suits. We just all have our own race suits because we go kart.
Bringing in ringers, you brought in a guy who was 18 stone.
Were you 18 stone at the time?
It was because of that event that I started losing the weight.
I think bringing Brad to any karting event upsets people, though, to be fair. But I was the second fastest. Anyway, that's ruined Radio 1 for me now because I turn on Radio 1. He's the biggest radio DJ in the UK.
I haven't listened to Radio 1 since Moyles left.
And I tune into that and I go, well, I can't tune in. I can't listen to this because he accused me of cheating. He's too tall. Anyway.
And the event hasn't happened again since.
What constitutes success for Yuki Tsunoda? I'm nervous. I just need it to be not Lawson level. He needs to bring that home in the points. Is that a big ask?
In the points, as in decent points, or 1 point in 10th?
So it does depend a little bit on where Verstappen finishes. So when people were defending Lawson and saying, yeah, but Max is struggling as well, that's kind of fair if he hadn't have finished P2 in Australia. And
where did he finish? And he finished independent P4 in China,
P4 but that's with and the disqualifications didn't affect him.
Actually, because they didn't affect him. No.
Yeah, so P2 and P4 does not really let Lawson off the hook. No, so yeah, I'd be looking for Tsunoda to go and score bottom end points. I think if he
1 or 2 points.
Okay, let's frame it by where Verstappen finishes in Japan. So we've got to make a little bit of a prediction of where that Red Bull could finish.
We're going to have to do some maths now.
I think the McLarens are still going to be clear. The Mercedes have really got their act together. Ferrari are just... they're going to
George Russell's really good, like I've been saying for years.
We'll have a whole nother chat about that. There's plenty
so
of time
vindicated
for that.
on...
Hey,
if you're trying to get vindicated on Perez, I am definitely getting vindication on George Russell.
Yeah, but are you giving me anything with Perez? You've given me nothing.
No, nothing.
You've given me nothing. So expect me to double down on Russell like you've never seen before. You've never seen doubling down.
Ding.
To be fair, I have said this is looking great from Russell, and it's a different mindset because maybe he doesn't have the Hamilton factor. He can start racing the whole grid instead of...
I've been saying for 2-3 years is what I've been saying.
No, but
he's been going, I have to beat Lewis, I have to beat Lewis, I have to beat Lewis.
But for 2 years, I've been saying, that's really annoying. I wish he'd stop doing that. That was ruining all of Hamilton's progress as well. And also, he's got a teammate who's finding his feet as well. So definitely.
We can do a whole show on that. Let's do another one of these.
Yeah. But I've given Russell, I've gone. I know I shared that meme with you where they had a picture of George Russell and they were like, George Russell does nothing, finishes P3 as like his race description.
I did laugh.
Yeah.
Before trashing it, I did laugh.
Yeah. So, okay, we'll get into that. But yeah, so let's assume that Ferrari are going to find some way to Ferrari again. And Verstappen has the performance to put that car P5. I think Tsunoda needs to be clear, basically, of the midfield. I don't think that's unreasonable. No one's expecting him to go, okay, Max is going to finish P5, but Yuki's got to go and beat the McLarens. No one's expecting that. You've got to be ahead of both Williams, both Haas, both Aston Martins, Alpines. You've got to be clear of that pack. And you've got to be at 8th is the absolute minimum. On your debut. This is your dream. This is what you've been working towards.
His home track as well. It's the track he loves. Not only is it his home track because he's from Japan, but it's his home track because it's the one where he's done the most amount of races and stuff. So
turn up.
It's the track that he knows the best. He hasn't got to learn the circuit. All he has to do is make that car work. And that's no mean feat, but
solid. You don't go there trying to beat Max. Get there trying to just operate that vehicle and soak in. The Japanese fans are going to go crazy, by the way. I've not even thought of that. The Japanese fans are some of the
marketing is insane.
The Japanese fans, though, if you look, they're some of the craziest, most inventive, passionate fans in Formula One. They're going to go absolutely nuts. And like for them, you're going to go, oh, please don't let this be just Lawson. Like, there is a caveat. If it goes all Lawson, I think the blame gets put on the team and the car. Okay. Yeah, the team and the car.
But it needs to be dry as well. I think if it's wet, it's a disaster.
Oh, Japan! It's a
that's why we've moved Japan to this point of the season.
Where did we move it to? It was in quite.
It was at the back end.
It was quite in a good position. It's still in Asia, though. Yeah. Ah, dad joke. Come on.
Time zone.
It's your dad zone.
I might. Brain. Yeah. No.
It's late. It's late for both of us. I've just come back from watching a Mary Poppins performance, so yes, it's hard to adjust our brains into F1 content.
But yeah, no, he if it's dry and he just needs a clean weekend, he needs to to be fair, if he ends up going out of Q2 but he's near the top of that Q2 bracket,
that'll be
that's fine, but then needs to work his way forward during the race.
That will show this is a difficult car, but I'm dealing with it better than Lawson. Yeah. If
and I expect him to.
What I don't expect is for him to qualify Verstappen P3, Tsunoda P4.
No,
I've got no hope in my most optimistic hope. I'm not dreaming of him alongside Verstappen on the grid.
But the crazy thing is the field is so close. Lawson was a second off pole and was last. I mean, we've never seen that for the person who is last to be a second off. It's usually way more than that.
There's some caveats with that though, because the top teams are probably doing bankers in Q1.
Yeah, but I'd need to go back and look at it. But it'd be interesting to see Max's ultimate qualifying time versus Lawson's ultimate qualifying time.
So if we see
that
Tsunoda, up there around P10, assuming Max is going to be like P3, P4, P5, something like that, then that'll be sort of job done, and then move forward in the Grand Prix. I had this thought the other day: if Lawson had binned it in both races, he'd be better off than he is now. If he'd have just put it in the wall, because he would.
But he was last in China in qualifying. That's really hard to hide from, especially when the Sauber is awful. Yeah. So it's a little bit. I think he was struggling to hide, and to be fair, the look on his face hides nothing. He was mortified at where he was and his performance. And as a person, as a human being, I feel for someone who has to feel that way, because no one should have to feel that way in their dream job.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about how we're going to feel with the two ends of the result. So we've had our middle of the road. That's fine result. So if he qualifies 11th and then comes in 8th, we're all going to go, he survived.
Good job.
Yeah, fine. Okay.
You can stay on another. You can stay on another race.
If this is it. This is the thing. If somehow he looks pretty decent against Max, then you can turn around and go, Lawson was the wrong pick. Perez was washed. Gasly and Albon maybe didn't have the experience to do it. Yeah, they never hit the sweet spot, and they were right to keep dismissing these drivers, and eventually they found the one that could drive this car. Yeah, they made bad choices along the way, flirting with Ricciardo, trying to get De Vries through the system. But finally, we found Tsunoda, and that is actually a testament to our junior program that we brought such a driver through and supported him with our friends at Honda, and that friendship has never wavered at all and isn't completely dependent on money and what kind of engines that we're going to go to after these regulations, and if they abandon the 2026 regulations. They can just go, well, there you go. We were right. We tried those drivers. They didn't make it. Yuki's the one. Good job, everyone. Let's stop talking about it now. The more interesting one is, what do we say if Tsunoda not only finishes poorly, but like Lawson, looks like he simply cannot operate that car? What do we do then, Alex?
Who else is there? They're not going to put Hadjar in.
No, but what does it say? This is what I'm saying. What does it say about the team and the car?
That they can't build a car around two drivers and they just focus on one driver. And the problem is when they had the 23 and the 24 car, that Max could win the title on his own was one thing. Actually, he didn't win the title on his own in 24, did he? 22 and 23 he did, though. But I know we talk about they don't care about the Constructors' title, but the Constructors' title does bring them a significant amount of money. And they can't just completely and utterly rely on Max Verstappen. And also, Max looks like he might get $1 billion offer from Aston Martin.
I would take that.
Which is mental. But Max has also said he's not going to be in F1 forever. And I've said this before. I think I said this on here. I think if Max goes in the next couple of years, I don't think Red Bull are going to be in the sport much longer.
Oh, good. I was going to say that. They might not survive.
Because if they're not winning, they're not doing the advertising any good. They are as much in this sport for advertising like Ferrari are. That is it. Red Bull gives you wings. Wings are at the front. Wings win races. If you're not winning races and you've lost your superstar driver, what's the point?
This is one of the most interesting driver swaps yet. I tell you what, let's give credit to Matt. He always said Albon and Gasly never got a fair shot. I came on board when it was Perez because it's a driver I'd followed, and I'm like, that's not my Perez. That's not my Perez. His tyre wear is too grainy.
See, as a dad, I get that joke. Those bloody books.
What was it called? Not my rabbit?
That's not my bear. That's not my cat. That's not my dog. That's not my blanket. There's a million of them.
I'm sure it's That's Not My Bear is the original one. But anyway, sorry. By the way, there is a film, book, or TV reference in every single episode of Missed Apex podcast. And the fewer people I get contacting me saying, I got that reference, that's cool, the better. But 0 is bad, but 1 is perfect.
It's usually me. So, I often message you, I understand that reference.
I got that reference. So, I don't know what I was saying. I'm gone. That's not, wait, I've got it back.
That's not my driver, Perez.
It is very late. That's not my driver, Perez. So all through that career, and especially in 2024, I'm screaming at you guys in the chat going, but I know he can't, like, something's wrong. Something's wrong. And do you know why I'm
so... He got exposed.
Do you know what? No.
He just got exposed.
I was saying, something's not right. Something's not right the whole time, right? And then Lawson, when he was also bad in China, Brad Philpott put in our WhatsApp chat, something's not right. And I was like, oh, no way. You don't get to say that. You don't get to say that after dismissing me for years with Perez. But we're all seeing it in different stages. Obviously, something's not right with that second seat. And my fear as a Tsunoda fan is Tsunoda's going to go in there and prove how undrivable that car is.
And I don't think he'll mince his words either.
No, he'll say.
I'm looking forward to the radio. That's one thing for sure.
Lawson would say, "Oh, it's my fault, mate. You know, I need to get to grips with it. It's in the window, yeah." But Tsunoda won't do that. There's no way. Tsunoda will go, "Yeah, I'm just a bit rubbish." Not a chance.
He will. But I think that's the one thing I actually at least gave Lawson some credit for, which was another reason I didn't give Perez a lot of credit, is when anything went wrong for Perez, it was never, ever, ever his fault. It
Correct.
Always somebody else's fault.
Always double down.
At least Lawson was like, I don't understand. I don't get why it's not working. Unfortunately, maybe Perez got it right in the sense that honesty isn't the best policy.
It isn't ever
in Red Bull, and it's
that
rubbish. I'm trying so honestly. You have to
you
have to appreciate me in this conversation. I'm trying so hard not to swear. There is so much that I want to swear about on this particular subject because it sucks and it's a terrible subject. And I shouldn't be getting this passionate about blooming Red Bull because I don't like Red Bull.
Red Bull drivers is the most thing we argue about. That's the thing we argue about the most and disagree about. But yeah, Perez, correct. Double down. Never admit guilt. That money was just resting in my account, officer.
But yeah, it's a horrible situation. And Red Bull used to be lauded for having the best junior driver program. They don't anymore. If arguably the Mercedes one is better with Kimi, and Ferrari brought in this young Hamilton kid who did quite well until he got disqualified. But it's a really baffling situation.
Well, it's not. It's a pay seat now. And it's a pay seat, and there was
which is even more ridiculous.
Well, there's a bidding war for it, but it's valid, right? If you're the manager of a young driver and you're able to bring funding in, or you've got family money, you're looking for the best Formula 2 team, and you're bidding and trying to buy a seat that other young drivers are trying to buy, right? The Red Bull second seat is just that. There's people,
but competing. It shouldn't be.
Obviously, shouldn't be.
It should.
Yeah, but it is.
The top, the McLaren, the Mercedes, the Ferrari, and the Red Bull seats should not be seats you have to pay for. It should be the case of you are the best driver in the sport. You've earned that seat through being really, really good. We are in a battle to pay you the most amount of money for you to join our team, or you should want to join our team because of who we are. That's what that seat should be. But they don't. They did the same thing with with Seb. They want to protect their number one driver. They don't want their number one driver to have any adversity and give them all the toys, which does and doesn't work. I always thought Ferrari had the balance.
Wait a minute, what do you mean give them all the toys? You told me Perez had exactly the same car as...
Does have the same car, but as in push it towards Max. I never said it wasn't pushed towards Max. I always said the car was balanced towards what Max wanted.
Will you at least admit that Perez didn't have the asymmetric braking and Max did?
I have no idea. I honestly, I cannot comment on that. Did that show where we talked about it, and before that show, I went back and watched the explosion on Max's rear thing, and I'm just like, that's a smoking gun, really. But and did Perez have it? No idea. No. Did Perez know how to use it? Is a different situation, because I compared that to when Red Bull had the blown diffuser and Mark Webber couldn't make it work. Seb did. So there is things like that where you do have a trick where you can or can't make it work. You know, maybe that was the case with Lewis and Das over Bottas.
Yeah. Remember how I said to you, here, Alex, jump on real quick. 15, 20 minutes. We'll in, out.
It's never, ever that.
New show coming up.
It could be a TikTok. No way.
New show coming up on Sunday. I've been talking to Mike Caulfield about a show next week to do some strategy chat. And then, of course, we've
always love his shows.
Japanese Grand Prix. Hang on, I'm just looking at my sheet. I think our race review will be at 9 a.m. So the Japanese Grand Prix, that can't be right, I think it's 6 a.m. in the UK. So that's not too bad. 6 a.m. Yeah, we'll sort of go for like 9, 10. And that will be Kyle and Jono, I think, joining us for that. So another early morning one. Are you?
I'm at a wedding. I'm at a family wedding.
Well, you weren't invited.
It encompasses my birthday as well. Oh. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday thing, and my birthday's on the Friday. It's almost a year since the incident, Spanner.
The incident?
Do you not remember the incident on my birthday, on my 40th?
What happened? Oh, where the wheel fell off.
Where I nearly died.
You did the superhero landing, and I refused to seat in that because I'm sensible, and my wife didn't give me permission to kill myself in a go-kart.
The real answer.
Alex Vangeen, you have. Oh, we should have plugged this earlier. Go-kart video. What's out now?
Yes, so I went testing last week in my brand new kart and had a really, really, really great day until like the last 5 minutes where my wheel broke. But I've done a really good video on it. It's all about the testing and how testing went and how I ran my testing day. I really enjoyed making that video. I did lots of really good editing as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, so please go watch that, Alex Vangeen Racing. There will also be a video coming up soon of me doing some actual racing with you, where I'm basically blaming you for stuff, so that'll be fun. Don't talk about that now. We don't. No.
It's already on my TikTok. I already blamed you 100%.
Yeah,
on my
exactly.
TikTok
That's
for that.
part of the reason I'm making a retort. And then there'll be a couple of adverts and stuff. And then for the bank holiday in April is our first race of GX UK of the season over at Wilton Mill. And I cannot wait. And I'm very optimistic because testing went so well.
Someone from your series randomly saw me in our gym cafe and was like, "Oh, Spanners!" And then we get chatting and stuff. And then I send you a selfie, and you said, "Well, in my video, there's actually a picture of that exact person." Hi, Simon. There's this of that exact person crashing on the first corner out of the pits on cold tires because they didn't get any tire warm up and just sent it off into the grass at Wilton Mill.
Yeah. Simon Dean of kartingtrackdirectories.co.uk. If you'd like to have, and if you'd like to have any,
fully exposed him.
No. To be fair, he did TKM, he did good, but yes, no, I did expose him, but I exposed him to make a point, which is the GX UK tires, how good they are once they've got some temperature in them. When they have no temperature, they are like ice, and you have to be really, really careful.
All right, and be careful following me on social media. If you don't like hot takes and zingers and correctness, don't follow our TikTok. Missed Apex F1 on there. If you be careful, if you don't like seeing a middle-aged man trying to have an Instagram account, don't follow me, Spanners Ready, on Instagram. And of course, we do the usual stuff over at Twitter and Blue Sky.
I forgot one more thing. I'm now doing iRacing live streams every Thursday. So I'm trying my hand at the GT series. And I had a terrible showing last Thursday, but I won a race today in the rain, which is my first win in a GT3 and my first win in a rain. And it's going to go wrong tomorrow, so come watch that.
When you said I'm doing a GT race in the rain, predict when I'm going to die, I am sorry for saying early 60s.
No, Spanners, you forget. Me and you, we're going to live forever. We are immortal.
Which means that there will be many more episodes of Cambridge Science. I'm going to do a link in the show notes below if you want to listen to me and Dr. Holding just talking about random science as a fun chill out. We'll see you on Sunday for a new show. Until then, work hard, be kind, and have fun. This was Missed Apex Podcast. I think it's better with two people. It's better without Matt. Oh, well, the tie wearing the thing. And then Chris being all like, I'm young and I have principles.
Yet we effortlessly do basically an hour.
And then you got...
when it was supposed to be half an hour.
And you got Stuffy. Watch me do race cars. Oh, no, I crashed again for the 48th consecutive race.